Welcome to our evening of college conversations. We're so excited to have you. I'm joined here with my colleague, Ashley Withers, or Miss Withers. And then we also have five amazing college representatives who will be taking over the evening. So it's a special evening because we have experts. We have five college experts in the admission field who have been gracious enough to spend part of their evening with us. So we'll talk about things like holistic review, testing, considering majors. Something we often tell our students is that everyone is in a different place in the college process, and this is the same for parents as well, right? Whether you're going through this for your first child, middle, last, there's always something to learn. I feel like ever since the pandemic, there's like a twist and turn every year. So hopefully this will give you some insight into the process for the upcoming year. So without further ado, we are lucky this evening, once again, to have five representatives from various institutions across the country, from our very own public systems, CSU and UC, a sister Jesuit college, to colleges spanning from the Midwest to the Northeast. They are here to give you insight. So with that said, let me introduce our first speaker. She is from Syracuse, Camille Kreitz.
My name is Camille Kreitz, and I'm the Associate Director of Admissions for Syracuse University. Even though Syracuse is based in central New York State, I'm actually based in Southern California. I'm a regional representative. So Syracuse is a mid-sized private university. We are located literally right in the middle of the state, about 5 hours north of New York City, and 5 hours west of Boston. We have an airport about 20 minutes from campus. So from any of the Bay Area airports, you can get to Syracuse with just one connection. When you land in Syracuse, 20 minutes later, you're on campus. We are a Tier 1 research institute, so there's a lot of research happening on campus, even at the undergraduate level, and we really encourage experiential learning. So experiential learning can be done through research, it can be done through internships. Many of our majors require internships. Or through study abroad, and we do have a top 10 study abroad program. We have about a little between 14 and 15,000 undergraduate students, but our average class size is 26, so nice small classes. You kind of get a big school feel in the sense of having over 300 clubs and organizations, D1 sports, but a much smaller feel in the classroom. We have over 200 majors and 100 minors. Students can come in many cases undecided. They can change their majors, they can double major or minor, and do that across curriculum. So there's a lot of interdisciplinary study going on campus. We are a Common App and a Coalition App school, so you can apply to us through either of those applications. We do require letters of recommendation from the counselor and from one academic recommender. So we prefer academic recommendations, and we recommend the A to G. We do have, in addition to the personal essay, we also have a supplemental essay as well on that application.
Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Inalise Soto Fuller, and I am Senior Director of Admissions at Seattle University. I have been in the profession for 17 years and have worked with many students and families on this big decision process, and I know how stressful it is. I also walked my 10 years younger sibling through this process and was basically her parent through that process. And so I'm very familiar with what parents are also feeling at this time. A little bit of information about Seattle University. If you want to take a virtual tour, definitely check that out. Those are our application deadlines. If you go to the next deadline. So here's a little bit about our institution. Seattle University is a private Jesuit institution. We're one of the 27 Jesuit institutions in the United States. And we have around 4,100 undergraduate students. So it's a really nice size. We have about 18 students in a classroom and 11-to-1 student to faculty ratio. We are a D1 division school. So if you're interested in athletics, we are in the D1. Just a couple stats there. I'm not going to go into a lot of that. But one thing to note about Seattle University is we're also a very diverse institution. We actually just were awarded a minority serving institution rating, and so that information will come out shortly. We're right in the heart of the city, so that's one of the benefits to our students is that you can see we're right there next to the downtown area, and so our students have a lot of opportunities right at their fingertips no matter what they study. We have over 60 majors across all of these colleges to the left. And then for students who are undecided, we also have a great academic pathways program that helps students discern what might be the right fit for their major. And the great thing is that across all of our majors, we have direct admission as well. Some of our direct admission programs are quite competitive, so you can go online and see what you need to do in order to get the prerequisites and what we're looking for in terms of students getting in. One thing that I'll note is we use the common application as our application process. We do require also 2 letters of recommendation, 1 academic and 1 school counselor. And then we do have 2 essays that are part of the normal admissions process, but if you are looking into nursing or our business and law program, there's 2 additional essays as well, and we have an optional belonging essay too.
My name is Drew Agbe. I'm the Director of Student Outreach and Recruitment here at good old San Jose State University, about an hour south of you all, depending on Bay traffic these days, maybe an hour and a half. But again, not too far, not too close, is I like to tell students from all around the Bay Area, in regards to that experience of still being able to leave home, experience the college life, but still, again, not be too far from mom or dad's home cooking back at home and with friends. And so for me, I definitely love to talk about our university. I'm also a proud alumni of the CSU and San Jose State specifically from a long time ago. But in regards to our university, we are one of the largest Cal State University or CSU campuses within the system. We have a little over 35,000 students, both undergrad and grad currently. We are continuing to grow. We're a very diverse community with over 134 majors and concentrations and over 300 student organizations. We like to say that we are in the heart of Silicon Valley there, but we're also, fun fact, the original Cal State University campus. So I like to say that we're a mix of the tradition tradition and history, as well as innovation. And I think that really is what makes us extremely unique here at San Jose State. So just to go a bit over our system of what we represent, many of my colleagues represent different institutions across the country. Obviously, San Jose State, again, being the original CSU, we're part of that 23 strong is what we like to call it, the CSU system, actually the nation's largest 4-year public university family of campuses. And so if you take a look at that map, you will find campuses all across the state of California, all the way up north like Humboldt State to down south like San Diego State. You have Central Valley campuses like Fresno and Bakersfield, and then you have the Bay Area, San Francisco State, which is very close to you all, Cal State East Bay across the bridge in Hayward, and then SJSU here in the South Bay. Now, San Jose State represents, again, the philosophy of the CSU system, which is what? High quality, hands-on, very student-centered. We're known to be one of the most affordable college systems in the country. Diverse, and again, preparing students for the workforce. So our students are very hands-on. Classrooms can be quite intimate and smaller as students progress through their degree. Obviously, at the beginning, may be a bit larger with lecture halls, but it's all about students being able to interact and interface with faculty, staff, and current students. As far as San Jose State and the CSU system across the board and our application process, so no essays or personal statements. We're through Cal State Apply with self-reported information. What's new is the fact that we no longer look at SAT, ACT scores. So again, the application is quite intuitive and very straightforward. And I think I could end there and pass the baton to my next colleague. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Kuka Acosta. I'm the Associate Director for Admissions at UC Santa Barbara. I'm happy to represent both my campus and the UC structure. There are 9 amazing UC campuses. We call each other siblings. We sometimes fight on the soccer field, but we love each other. And we take the public branch of universities in California that are theory-based and research-based. So our job is to teach critical thinking, problem solving, and then have that many in all of our 800 majors across the 9 undergraduate UC campuses. Santa Barbara is the middle child in the UC system. There are 4 campuses north of us, 4 campuses south of us. We're technically in Southern California, located on the waterfront. So I say ooh and ah to the picture on campus. About 26,000 total students at UCSB. About 23,000 of those are undergraduate. And for point of reference, you've got small campuses like Merced that are almost at 10,000. And then larger campuses like UCLA that have 40,000. So you see that there's a mix everywhere, and hopefully a right fit for you. You should note that when it comes to the University of California application, there is one single application that we ask students to complete between October 1st and November 30th of their senior year. We, as a UC system, will ask students to check the box next to the campus or campuses where they'd like to apply, with the knowledge that each campus will evaluate that application individually. We do not collaborate with each other. We don't care how many colleges you're applying to. We are selfish people in admissions. If you apply to me, I think I'm your first choice, because I am. Duh. It's a holistic admissions, which we're talking about later on, so I'll point out 3 things for UC. 1, it's a self-reported application. We ask students to complete your A through G academic requirements by the end of senior year. 2, you self-report your grades through junior year, and we'll use sophomore and junior year in your admission selection. And 3, we look at what you do outside of the classroom with equal rigor as what you do inside of the classroom. With that, I'll say thank you so much for allowing me to be here and answer your questions about UC and UC Santa Barbara.
And thanks, everyone. My name is Drew Riley, Director of Admission at Denison University. Denison is located in beautiful Granville, Ohio, situated just about 20 minutes outside of our capital in Columbus, Ohio. Denison is a liberal arts and sciences college. And so I want to talk a little bit about what a liberal arts college is and what are some of the defining features of Denison and other similar institutions. So liberal arts and sciences colleges tend to be smaller. So if you think UC Merced at 10,000 is small, we are at about 2,400 students, and many of us are even smaller than that. We tend to be predominantly residential. Denison, for instance, is 100% residential. So all of our students live on campus for all 4 years at Denison. That's not the case at all liberal arts colleges, but they tend to be predominantly residential campuses where students live in community with each other for the majority of their education. And then they also are predominantly undergraduate institutions. We have faculty members from across the globe who are celebrities in their fields, but they teach at a place like Denison or other small liberal arts colleges because they really want to be in a small classroom environment, side by side with students, serving as mentors, serving as folks who get to know our students inside and outside of the classroom in really intimate and special ways. So Denison, for instance, has a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio, and our average class size is about 17 students. And we don't have any graduate programs, so all of the resources of the university are at the behest of our undergraduate student population. The other ways that I kind of characterize liberal arts and sciences colleges, this is in some ways, I think of it as honestly a luxurious college experience. It is a place where you can go and completely immerse yourself in learning and education and community with people from across the globe for 4 years. So Denison, for instance, has students from 50 states and 76 countries. Again, everyone lives on campus. And so it's really a luxurious and an immersive experience. But when you hear luxurious, it is not necessarily expensive. You'll see a high price tag on liberal arts and sciences colleges, but many of us offer some of the best financial. And thanks, everyone. My name is Drew Riley, Director of Admission at Denison University. Denison is located in beautiful Granville, Ohio, situated just about 20 minutes outside of our capital in Columbus, Ohio. Denison is a liberal arts and sciences college. And so I want to talk a little bit about what a liberal arts college is and what are some of the defining features of Denison and other similar institutions. So liberal arts and sciences colleges tend to be smaller. So if you think UC Merced at 10,000 is small, we are at about 2,400 students, and many of us are even smaller than that. We tend to be predominantly residential. Denison, for instance, is 100% residential. So all of our students live on campus for all 4 years at Denison. That's not the case at all liberal arts colleges, but they tend to be predominantly residential campuses where students live in community with each other for the majority of their education. And then they also are predominantly undergraduate institutions. So we have faculty members from across the globe who are celebrities in their fields, but they teach at a place like Denison or other small liberal arts colleges because they really want to be in a small classroom environment, side by side with students, serving as mentors, serving as folks who get to know our students inside and outside of the classroom in really intimate and special ways. So Denison, for instance, has a 9-to-1 student to faculty ratio, and our average class size is about 17 students. And we don't have any graduate programs, so all of the resources of the university are at the behest of our undergraduate student population. The other ways that I kind of characterize liberal arts and sciences colleges, this is in some ways, I think of it as honestly a luxurious college experience. It is a place where you can go and completely immerse yourself in learning and education and community with people from across the globe for 4 years. So Denison, for instance, has students from 50 states and 76 countries. Again, everyone lives on campus. And so it's really a luxurious and an immersive experience. But when you hear luxurious, it is not necessarily expensive. You'll see a high price tag on liberal arts and sciences colleges, but many of us offer some of the best financial aid packages in the country as well. And particularly for low and middle income students, it can be an option that is extremely reasonable financially once you receive those financial aid packages. So we use the Common Application, the Coalition Application, as well as the QuestBridge application. Those are the 3 ways to apply to Denison. And QuestBridge in particular is a member organization. Denison is a member along with 49 other colleges and universities throughout the country, targeted towards high achieving, very low income students across the country to give them a path into college for basically for free, very, very inexpensive way to apply to some of the top colleges throughout the country. We ask for a counselor recommendation and a teacher recommendation to apply, as well as an essay, but no supplement. So I will pass it back to our college counseling colleagues, and looking forward to chatting with you more tonight. Late packages in the country as well. And particularly for low and middle income students, it can be an option that is extremely reasonable financially once you receive those financial aid packages. So we use the Common Application, the Coalition Application, as well as the QuestBridge application. Those are the 3 ways to apply to Denison. And QuestBridge in particular is a member organization. Denison is a member along with 49 other colleges and universities throughout the country, targeted towards high achieving, very low income students across the country to give them a path into college for basically for free, very, very inexpensive way to apply to some of the top colleges throughout the country. We ask for a counselor recommendation and a teacher recommendation to apply, as well as an essay, but no supplement. So I will pass it back to our college counseling colleagues, and looking forward to chatting with you more tonight.
Thank you so much for those great introductions. So now we're going to go a little into the 3 themes, which the first one is the holistic review we're going to talk about. And we are going to focus, Kuka and Inaliz are going to focus on course and grades, a little bit about the role of extracurriculars, questions such as, does financial aid play a factor with the holistic review? And then the rest of the panelists are also going to chime in a little bit about essays, writing supplements, and portfolio requirements for their institution. So I'm going to hand it over for Kuka and Inaliz for the next 8 to 10 minutes to discuss a little bit about the holistic review.
There are different ways to think of this. So some of the UC campuses, for example, call it holistic, others call it comprehensive. But here's the thing to take away, and that is, when it comes to a holistic or a comprehensive review, it's not just about grades. Let that sink in for a second. The idea is, who are you as a human? Who are you as a student? And all those moving parts. So that means, yes, that the classes that you took to earn those grades. And I point this out when we talk about admission, and that is, there's a difference between a student who's taking underwater basket weaving and PE, and a student who's taking math, science, and there's differences there. So it's not just about a GPA, it's about how you earned that GPA and how you challenged yourself with maybe honors or dual enrollment or AP or whatever was accessible and available at your school. So context is my favorite word when we talk about holistic admissions, because what was available to you, what you took advantage of, and then what you gained from that experience is shared in the application in a holistic review. And so
Yes.
I'll focus on that. And then anything you wanted to add there?
Yeah, I would just add grade trend as well. So we look at the courses that you've taken, maybe how those courses connect to the major of interest. So if you say for us, for example, if you say you're interested in nursing, then there are specific types of classes that we need to see on your transcript. We recognize that sometimes students have a rocky start or a rocky middle or just a rocky season. And so we love hearing about that, and there are plenty of opportunities to share about those things in the application or connect with an admissions counselor, but definitely making sure that you address maybe some of those rocky spots on your academic record. That's also part of that holistic review process. And then I liked what you said, Kuka, about what's available to you. We do take those things into account. So some students will have different opportunities than others. And so if for you, your family and being involved in family responsibilities is a big thing, share that on your application. We love to see it. That means that you are showing responsibility and care for others, and we would love to hear about it. So all of those things matter as we consider your application. I'll just dive into the financial aid as a factor. This is different for all institutions, but something that you can ask about is if an institution is need aware or need blind. At Seattle University, we are need aware, for example. So although that is not something that always plays into our decision process, it's part of that holistic review. So for a particular student, it might be important as part of the factor in deciding admission, and for another, it might not. And so yeah, I think it's really good to ask a lot of questions as you consider an institution, and really ask directly, for you, what does holistic review mean? What do you look for in your students? Because we're all also very different institutions, and we're looking for students who fit into the culture and mission of our school, that might bring unique aspects of their identity to our institution. And so it's really important to do your research and ask a lot of questions of what is this institution looking for in their students, and how do I help make sure that pieces of my identity stand out and what I've been involved with.
I'll just sort of finish that off with, when it comes to many of our schools at the public school level, and I'll speak for Santa Barbara in particular, the Supreme Court decision about identity and not being able to use race or ethnicity as part of the review process, that's been a California thing for 25 plus years. So it didn't change our point of view, but what it did is it made us reaffirm what we're doing. So for example, your name is redacted on my UC application. So I don't know who you are. I can't make any assumptions about you. And then I don't make assumptions anyways. If you're an athlete or if you're a musician, if you're in the theater program, I don't fill in the blanks. So a lot of the application is self-advocacy.
Yes.
And this is really hard to do when you're 16 and 17. So here's my tip for all of you who are thinking, all right, I know I'm going to apply to a school where there's holistic admissions. Are you keeping track of how you spend your time when you're not asleep and when you're not in class?
Mm-hmm.
And Elise said it right. Are you helping family? Are you translating for your family? Are you responsible for babysitting your little siblings? How are you keeping track of your time? And I really mean this, hours per week and weeks per year.
Yes.
Because that's what we're going to ask. We're going to ask that in the application. We're also going to ask something that's really hard to do, and that is describe what you've been doing in these activities and how you're spending your time when you're not in class. That's all part of the holistic review. And again, we don't assume anything and we don't fill in the blanks for you. So the best applications are the one where I stop reading, I finish the review, and I don't have questions. The worst, the ones that stand out, and by the way, standing out is never a good thing to me, are the ones where I'm like, I don't know what she meant. I don't know what she said. I wish I could ask her, but I can't. So I think holistic review is painting that picture of all of the opportunities or lack thereof, and how that then plays into your academic performance and your performance as a human being in our review. And then the fun of essays. I know our friends will chime in, but I'm going to put in that UCs don't have essays. Let me be very clear. We have questions that we ask you, and all we want are answers. So if we were to sit here having a conversation with our little cup of coffee, and I were to say, and at least tell me, what your favorite subject is, you would answer. You wouldn't sit there and think, oh, but what is a subject if not? No. Like, it's a plain conversation. And think about this in this way. The admissions officer at a public school where we get over 100,000 applications isn't going to sit there reading it 3 or 4 times. One and done. That's going to be something that the UCs do. We're unique in that we read it once and then we move on. So if it's hard to understand, if it's too creative, it's going to sort of bomb on you on our end, which is probably something totally different at Seattle.
Yes, it's very different. So we have a couple of essays, so longer form responses. And for us, that writing piece is important. So that is something that we take into account as we're reviewing your essays and your application is, are you writing at that college level? Are you ready to write essays at Seattle U? And so that is something that we do take a critical look at. We do have some essays so one of our essays is just about Seattle University and our unique identity as a Jesuit institution. And so we want to know how you connect to our mission and who we are as a university. And then we also, we do have a belonging essay. And because we're such a diverse institution and we care a lot about diverse perspectives and who is a part of our community, we want to know that students care about belonging and care about being a part of a diverse community. And so that gives you the opportunity to share about that, no matter what your background is or identity is. And then as I said before, we have some unique programs that are very competitive. And so we ask specific questions for students who are looking into nursing or business and law programs, where we need to know that you understand what you're getting yourself into. Nursing is not just helping people. Nursing is dealing with some interesting bodily functions. So we want to make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into, that you've researched the major and profession, and that you're excited about it. And so those are also essays that we ask about. More short answer, not like a long flow essay, but like Kuka said, is like, so why are you interested in nursing? Tell me more. Where did that come from? Where did that passion come from? What makes you ready to take it on? So yeah, that's the only thing I would add there.
I'll chime in a little bit about portfolios. I'm not going to, you guys, I think we're pretty comprehensive when it comes to the essays, but for any students that are applying to portfolio-based programs, I think it's really important that you get a clear idea of what the exact requirements are, because every school is going to be different and every program. At Syracuse, you might be applying to the film program where you're going to have a 5-minute video portfolio. You might be applying to an art program or architecture where you need 10 to 12 pieces of artwork. You might be applying to stage management, and that's a completely different type of portfolio. So every program, even within the same school, is going to have different requirements for portfolio. So it's important that you know exactly what the requirements are and that you work very closely with your teachers, maybe with an AP art teacher or with an outside art teacher, or with your theater teacher, whomever that might be. And I really recommend that you attend the National Portfolio Day fairs, because a lot of schools attend those fairs and they'll often be able to critique and sometimes actually review your portfolios on site. And it's just a great way for you to get some feedback from schools, especially those that you might be applying to.
Thank you for that. Does anyone just want to chime in a little bit about maximizing yet balancing a little bit of their summer rest? Mental health, I know, is really important. And how do you navigate that, or how do you encourage your students to do that?
I would just say, we know that you are humans. And we know that you're in high school, and that balance of diving into opportunities, but also just having fun as a teenager and living that life while you're in that age demographic is really important. So I think it's really being intentional about what things you're truly passionate about, that will serve you well in either identifying what major you want to go into, or what kinds of experiences you want to have in high school and in college, and really focusing on those things. So maybe you do a pre-college program that's specifically around a major that you're considering or interested in. But then the rest of summer, you take some time to have fun and enjoy time with friends and family. Maybe have a little side job to make some money. But that's my recommendation, is really focusing on those things that you are truly passionate about, not just resume building, but really finding the things that you know will help you discern next steps and get excited about, a possible program or service or whatever it may be. Really aligning with that sense of calling.
I'll chime in on this. I've got a 17-year-old who did not do well in the pandemic, and then starting high school with no circular friends around her. And so I'll tell you this, if you need to talk about how that's impacted you as a human being, as a student, in your personal relationships, then talk about it. I welcome it in the UC application, but here's the fine print. You can't just put it out there. I have anxiety, and then just let it go because I don't know what to do with that. How did it impact you? That's the question. So if you're going to bring it up, which you totally can, it's a part of who you are, it's that holistic review, then make sure that there's something behind the statement that explains what you're going through, because you don't have to be on the other side of it at all. We as staff read applications and we empathize with you. We totally do. But we've been told very clearly we can't fill in the blanks for students because Santa Barbara during the pandemic, I was out walking on the beach every day. I wasn't clustered in an apartment. I wasn't doing any of that. So my situation is not your situation. So I can't put that story on you.
That's such good advice. I just want to, yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for that. And thank you for that transparency about your daughter as well. So we are going to transition to the testing landscape, and we're going to talk a little bit about the future of testing for institutions and addressing, scores and planning to submit or not to submit. What does test optional mean? So I'm going to pass it to Camille and Drew Riley.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about if you do have scores or if you're planning on taking exams, what you're going to do with those. I think the most important thing is to, again, use your counselors as your guides because they are really your font of expertise. You want to know what the median scores are at the schools that you're applying to. So for example, if a school has a median score of SAT score of 1320 and you got a 1300 on your SAT, the obvious thing is to think, I'm not going to submit my score because it's lower than the median and it's not going to help my application. In general, yeah, that is probably that's probably the correct response, but it also depends on what your GPA is. Maybe you have a low GPA. So showing that you're at least close to their median, that might help you. That might strengthen your application. Maybe you have a really, really strong math score on your SAT and you're applying to an engineering or a business or a math program. And so that's more important than maybe your overall SAT score. So it's really important that once you get your scores and you see the breakdown of those scores and you know what the medians are for the schools you're applying to and perhaps the majors you're applying to, because again, that might be differentiated among majors. Engineering programs might be looking for a higher SAT score than, say, an English program. Every school is a little bit different. So it's important, and your counselors are pretty savvy. They know, what those medians are. They know who to connect with. But those are questions you can ask when you meet with college reps, when they come to your high schools, when you meet them at a college fair. Find out what those medians are. That's a starting point, but that's not necessarily the end all, because again, most of us that are doing those holistic reviews, if I see that you have a lower GPA, but you've got a pretty good test score, even though it's not quite in our median, but it's close, that might still, strengthen your application a little bit. So, there's no yes or no black and white, but definitely take advantage of your counselors to help guide you. And don't be afraid to ask schools or look up on websites and find out what median scores are for various programs.
Absolutely. So, adding on to that and kind of expanding a little bit, the first thing I will say about testing is that when we review an application, we do not look at any individual student's individual element of their application without the context of the rest of their application and the context of where that student is coming from. And why that's relevant for testing is because for some students, they submit test scores that they're really, really proud of. They might have been the highest testing member of their high school with a 26 or a 27 on the ACT. Sorry, Ohio's an ACT state, so I think an ACT. And they're really proud of that. Now, our middle 50% is a 30 to a 33. So in a vacuum, that might look like a low test score. But for that student at that school, especially if they're from a low income background, if they're a first gen college student, there's a variety of factors that contribute to this. We know that that's actually something to be proud of, and it's not at all concerning to us. So I'm speaking for Denison, but I think every college has kind of figured this out, that context is absolutely critical. And we examine your application in your context specifically. And we're really good at that, actually, at figuring out your context and understanding, where your performance exists within relation to that context. The other thing to note is that many of us have been doing this for a pretty long time. So obviously, everybody went test optional during COVID, right? Nobody could take tests. And so all of the colleges were, we all said, oh, okay, we're going to go test optional now. Are starting to see, and I'm going to speak about this in a second, but we're starting to see some colleges go back to requiring test scores. But I think what you'll see is that most colleges probably won't go back, or at least not for quite a while here. And the reason is we are able to make admission decisions, really successfully, actually, without test scores, in the absence of test scores. There's a lot of evidence in a student's application that tells us whether or not they're going to be a good fit at our college and university, and also just a good college student to be able to be successful at our institutions. The transcript is and has always been, even when testing was required, the most predictive piece of the application in terms of a student's potential success in college. Because think about that transcript, it represents 3 to 4 years of work, right? It represents a lot more than just a test score. We see a student's strengths and weaknesses in different disciplines throughout the curriculum. We see trends like we talked about earlier. Certainly we'd like to see an upward trend as opposed to a downward trend. So that transcript, we tend to pick that apart, and it tends to be significantly more predictive of a student's success in college. So if you are a student who is thinking to yourself, well, I'm looking at these middle 50% and my test scores are below the colleges and universities that I want to apply to, you should have no shame in applying as a test optional applicant if you're in that situation. One of the things that I feel don't talk about quite enough is just how many students apply to our institutions test optional. So for those of us, this is obviously going to be different for the UCs and the CSUs, but for private colleges who are test optional, most of us are around that like 50% mark, some of us even lower than that, of students who submit test scores. So I always talk to students and they're worried that they are going to be in the minority or the vast minority of students when they don't submit their ACT or SAT scores. That actually couldn't be further from the truth. And I see peer data, so I actually have a good idea of how many students are submitting test scores across the country. You're probably in the majority, depending on the institution that you're applying to, if you don't submit your test scores. So that's something to keep in mind, and hopefully something that helps buoy students who choose not to submit their test scores. And then the last thing I'll say, just kind of going back to that national landscape piece, you're seeing these headlines about MIT and Dartmouth and other institutions who are reinstituting testing requirements. And what they are finding, if you dig deep into this data, what they are finding is that it is not that students with lower test scores aren't successful in college. What they're finding is that there is a less risk in those students who have extremely high test scores. So we're talking about like 1500s and above on the SAT. Those students, for the most part, do really, really well in college. Well, that's not a revelation, right? Like there's a lot of evidence for a long, long time that's told us that students with really, really high test scores tend to be college ready. So there's nothing revelatory coming out in this data here. It's things that we have known for a long time. It does not mean that students with low test scores or who are not submitting test scores are not successful in college, because even at these institutions, the vast majority of those students are really, really successful in college. And that's because they're looking at the transcripts and they're looking at the student's personal side. So they're admitting, not just based on the test score, but based on all these other things that, again, we've been doing this for a long time. We know what makes a successful college student. And so I think you'll continue to see some schools that are very risk averse, to be perfectly frank, reinstitute testing requirements. But the vast majority of institutions across the country, I think, will continue to remain test optional. That's certainly the case at Denison. We have no intention of reinstituting test requirements. And I will let my colleagues chime in about how that conversation is looking at their institutions as well.
I wanted to just say one more thing about test optional. A lot of schools that are test optional, they might have exceptions to that. So again, it's something you want to talk to every school depending on the program. We have been test optional for years, even before COVID, for our visual and performing arts or BFA programs, because we already had portfolios and auditions in addition to the application. But even when we went test optional during COVID, one single program remained test required, and that is our direct entry medical school program. The reason being that the MedCats are waived later on. And so it's really important that, especially if you're applying to some very specific niche kind of program, that you always ask that you're sure of what the requirements are, because again, even within one university, some of those requirements might change. What I will say about Syracuse is we don't know if we're remaining test optional. I asked that question today at our staff meeting because I knew I was having this conversation tonight, and they haven't decided if we're going to remain test optional or not for 2025. So fingers crossed, because I agree with Drew. I think that we have been able to really choose amazing students the last 4 years, even without the test scores. And I'll let my other colleagues chime in.
At Seattle University, we are not planning on bringing back the test scores. So we are doing great with test optional. It's a great option for students.
And then for San Jose State, same. So there are no recent or current conversations of changing back to looking at SAT, ACT scores.
And there's not to interrupt, there's a great question in the chat. With the test optional consideration in mind, is it even necessary to do test prep and to hire a testing specialist to improve scores? Of course, that's an individual decision. Here's what I'll say. If you are looking at institutions and you look at that middle 50%, that median test score, and they're really high numbers, and you're close, but you're not quite there, and that test prep could push you over the top, it might very well be worth it to you and your family to make the extra effort, make that investment, and give yourself a little bit of a better shot at getting into that institution. It's not going to be a guarantee. There's no such thing as a guarantee, especially when you're talking about highly selective institutions, unfortunately. But it might be worth it. If you've slammed yourself against a brick wall with this test once or twice, and it's stressing you out, and it's daunting, and it is impacting your schoolwork and your personal life and things like that, stop right now. You are going to have plenty of amazing college options for you. It's going to limit you in extraordinarily small ways, smaller than you could ever possibly have imagined. And so just stop, don't make the investment, don't bother preparing for the test, focus on school, focus on yourself, focus on living a good life, and college will take care of itself.
I love that. Love that. Thank you so much. Transition to our last theme, which is going to be talking about considering competitive majors. What happens, if you apply undecided? What does that look like? What factors are considered competitive majors? Computer science, business, engineering, nursing. So I am going to hand that over.
Do I have to go first? Actually, no, I'm totally kidding. Definitely a great topic to discuss to make it more more clear for prospective students and families. So I'll represent first in my talking point San Jose State University specifically. Then I'll give some kind of general vague-ish info about the Cal State system, because as I mentioned in my intro, you're looking at 23 campuses, and although part of the entire system, or part of the same system, with the minimum requirements being pretty much the same, with 23 campuses, then we start to kind of veer into different directions in regards to competitiveness and selectiveness. So San Jose State, just kind of a quick overview, and some may already know this, but San Jose State University is one of the more competitive Cal State campuses out of the 23 campus system. We are what they call fully impacted, so impaction. So for those who are a little bit newer to the term, impaction by definition means that we are a university that receives more applications than we can accommodate. Now, a long time ago, the CSUs were not known to be as competitive. San Jose State was probably in that conversation as well, but times have definitely changed. And so SJSU is actually what they call fully impacted, meaning, and this is where it gets very unique in comparison to the other 22 campuses. San Jose State, our impaction is implemented in practice based on the major. So when you're looking at all 134 majors and concentrations, each major has its own competitive threshold. Best way to describe it, you have computer science, which is, let's say, all the way up here. And then you have geography, no offense to geography, but maybe they're just wanting more students and they might be the minimum. And then you have everyone in between. And that is how San Jose State practices their impaction. So for a student looking to get into a major, and let's talk competitive major. So at SJSU, hands down, the most competitive majors on our list is computer science, computer engineering, most of the engineerings, animation, illustration, and nursing. And so for students who are looking to be competitive in those programs, again, pretty straightforward, right? To kind of reference back to my original introduction, where again, no essays, personal statements. Now we're not looking even at test scores, but it does kind of the majority, the heavy, as I like to call it, is on that GPA. Now, with the elimination of SAT, ACT scores being looked at for admissions, the minimum CSU GPA is a 2.5 for California residents, 2.5. Now, will a 2.5 get a student into our nursing, our computer science, our computer engineering? Probably not. Okay. The reason being is those are the higher end majors that are extremely competitive. Now, what I will do is drop in the chat just a link to our impaction thresholds. Again, just to be safe, I have to say that this is only for San Jose State, because again, we are one of the most impacted universities, but also our impaction is very unique in comparison to the other 22. And so when it comes down to it, to try to get into nursing, engineering, computer sciences, it really will come down to the GPA. Okay. Now there are additional factors that you can find on our website as well that, could be a range of, is the student, the first in their family to go to college? Is the student, is the student a veteran, a military veteran, things of that nature. But again, the GPA definitely weighs the heaviest. To answer the question about undeclared, coming in as a first-time freshman, you can come in as undeclared. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially if you're extremely, maybe you have a few interests, you're still thinking about 2 or 3 majors, absolutely. But just realize for a student that back in the day when people used to think about undeclared, it would mean, oh, that's the minimum, right? That's the minimum score, probably the least competitive. That is not true for San Jose State. Undeclared has an actual competitive threshold, and oftentimes it's more competitive than 15 to 20 of our other majors. So just keep that in mind. The link I did provide in the chat is a San Jose State list of impaction thresholds, where we are very transparent, where students can actually take a look at what the trend has been, what the pattern has been at our institution for at least the last 3 or 4 years. So again, students can have an idea on the trends of computer science or nursing and what those thresholds have been. Okay. Now I'll talk briefly because I don't want to talk everyone's brain off, because I'm sure my colleague also wants to have their talking points. But for the CSU, again, just to reiterate, all 23 campuses are different, right, in regards to their competitiveness and their potential practice of impaction. Not all campuses are impacted like San Jose State, right? Just a few examples of impacted universities: Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, San Diego State University, Cal Poly Pomona at different levels, and then you have ones that have zero impaction or zero impacted campuses. And this also is an ever-changing list, right? Where each year, a campus that was once possibly impacted may be taken off that list. I know, and I use the phrase, I know that kind of drives people crazy, right? But it is a large system with an ever-changing, admissions and education, environment. And so my number one recommendation is keep updated or stay updated with the CSU or the Cal State University website. But if there's a specific campus that your son or your daughter, or if this for the students on here, or if you're looking at specific schools, you're like, is that school impacted? What are the requirements? I would say directly hit them up, right? Reach out to their admissions and outreach offices just to double check. And campuses like us, we have virtual offerings, obviously drop-in, phone call, all that. But it is a large system with some unique practices. And again, a campus like San Jose State is competitive. But I always say too, impaction does not mean impossible. Impaction does not mean impossible. There was the word on the street that people were like, oh, why should my son even apply to San Jose State? I heard you all are impacted. Well, again, the way I described is, yes, you have those competitive majors where you do have to be competitive, right? But you have other majors that are what I call reasonable.
So the University of California is going to have same concept. There's 9 different campuses. There's 800 majors, but I'm going to give you a PDF that's going to be your list of where does major play a factor. It's called the University of California Quick Reference Guide. And essentially it goes UC campus by UC campus, and it tells you if you apply to this major, your major is part of the review. And so, for example, if you apply to UCLA in engineering or nursing or theater, film, and television, your major is part of the review. Santa Barbara College of Engineering, your major is part of the review. So here's your hint. In the UC application, if you select a major, click the button, and a gray box appears, it's going to tell you that your major is part of the review. So you have, in August, when the application opens, the ability to actually go look at that. 27 of that guide, you'll see campus by campus. So what do you need to know? Well, some of us will allow you to apply to an alternate major, a second choice. So at Santa Barbara, if you say engineering is my first choice, I'm going to ask you, if I offered you something other than engineering, do you still want UCSB? And if the answer is yes, I want to go to school by the beach, then you might get admitted to that alternate major, and now the choice is yours. If the answer is no, it's computer science or nothing, then you put your first choice major in the application, and we'll see where the dice rolls. But this is what we saw in the last 3 years. Anything with the word computer is massively popular. Computer science, computer data analytics, computer engineering. And so it's no longer about, am I smart enough to do the major? Because I'm sure you are. It's now a space capacity. I've got 100 seats and 9,000 applications. It's not about who's the smartest and who has the highest GPA. It is literally how many seats do I have? So you need to do that research this spring, this summer, as you're picking your campuses. And let me be very blunt about this. If you decide you want to come into a UC campus as undeclared or Celtic studies because you're like, yay, easy in, you may not be able to switch into one of those selective majors. You can't at Santa Barbara. So it's not a game of how do I get my foot in the door and then change into that. Last thing I'll point out is that there are so many ways to get involved in research or to get involved in projects within majors that you might think, hey, I want to be an engineer, or I want to be a musician and I want to do that audition process. I didn't pass it. There's still ensemble groups. There's still programs to be able to engage in that activity, even if it's not your intended major. So last thing I'll say is that undeclared is an option at every campus. It is a great way for students to find what they want, but it should be used only if you don't know what you want to study. Camille, it's all yours.
Great advice. I applied to UC Davis undergrad, undecided. So, and found my way. Okay, so outside of the public schools, the private schools, and I think more in particular liberal arts schools tend to be a little bit more flexible. In fact, a lot of liberal arts schools, you will automatically apply undecided. You don't even choose a major until maybe your beginning of your junior year, end of your sophomore year. A lot of our schools tend to be more flexible, and you can come in undecided. There's a little bit more flexibility about getting into those majors that you want to get into. Even some of the more competitive majors like the engineering school, say, or a business school. Sometimes the art programs are a little bit tougher because you need those foundational classes your freshman and sophomore year. And so transferring into an art school might be more complicated. But as far as most of the academic programs, I think in liberal arts and in smaller universities, even if they're competitive admissions, once you're in, you will have that opportunity to either come in undecided. It won't look bad. A lot of students are afraid it's going to look bad. When we're looking at students that are applying undecided, they still have to have those minimum requirements for the major that they might be applying to. And as far as like Kuka was talking, trying to get in through the back door, maybe applying to one major and then switching to another. I can say that at Syracuse, we have a very flexible curriculum, so that is a possibility. But let's say you apply to a less competitive major, and then at the end of your freshman year, you want to change into, say, the business school or the College of Engineering. That's still going to be competitive because there's still only going to be a certain amount of spots. And they'll at that point be looking at your freshman grades, the classes you've been taking freshman year. Did you spend your freshman year taking a bunch of easy classes, general ed classes, or did you spend your freshman year taking as many math and science classes as you could possibly do to strengthen your application for the engineering school? So those are things to talk about with every school because they're all going to be different. Whether you apply undecided, whether you come in undecided automatically. Another tip is if you are applying to programs like, I keep going back to business, engineering, computer science, all of those things that tend to be the more competitive schools right now, talk to schools and find out if they're growing those departments. Because when schools are trying to grow their departments, or maybe they've just created a new major or a new department altogether, and they're hiring faculty and they have a new building, they need to fill those spots. And so for the first couple of years, you might be able to get into one of those programs a little bit easier than you might be once it's more consolidated. So just as an example, a few years ago, we started a brand new sports analytics program. And it was the first of its kind. The first couple of years, it was pretty easy to get in. Now it's pretty tough to get in. But when we were first starting it, we needed to fill the spots. We needed to create the program. So kind of keep your eye out for that and ask universities, do you have any new upcoming programs? And a lot of, schools are always creating new programs, new majors based on the ever-changing world of, technology. So I'm sure there's going to be new majors based on AI. Data analytics is huge these days, but those are definitely questions that you want to be asking. Can I apply undecided? How easy is it, or how difficult is it to be able to transfer into a major once I've figured out what I want to do? And do you have any new programs, majors, anything like that might be feasible for me to think about?
Ooh, can I piggyback on that one, Camille? I want to point out this. Your major in college gives you foundational skills, but we all know that it's not a direct line to your career path, right? You could be a history major and go off into accounting. You can be an economics major and end up being a publicist. Like, my alums go all over the place, and it's not always a one-to-one. So think about your skill sets. In high school, what are you loving? Because there might be a career path in that and a major that has a totally different title than you're even thinking of. linguistics with technology as an emphasis is a really cool program if you want to work on AI algorithms and, text to speech patterns. And it has no words in it that talk about computers, but it has a theme behind it. So also look at those hidden gems that give you your skill set as your major, and note that you can make that work in internships. You can make it work in career placement options or in research. And that's what gets you your foot in the door into those careers that may not necessarily need a title with a major that you're thinking of.
Thank you all for this information. I love it. And I know that our parents and our students are hopefully soaking all this information and knowledge up. We are almost wrapping up. There are some Q&A questions that we have that we're gonna, Miss Wong, Stephanie, and I are gonna kind of go through and see if the panelists can assist us with a few. I'm gonna start off. I think this is gonna be for Drew at San Jose State. For CSU schools, an application and consider 10th and 11th grade GPA with no essay. How do students express situations in life that may have caused a bump in their GPA?
Again, I would say majority, if not all, of the CSUs, they don't have the personal statement and the essays. Now, and this is where I would recommend reaching out to those specific schools. I had referenced earlier, and I'm trying to go back to the slide as we speak. I'd referenced earlier that many CSUs, in place of the SAT, ACT scores, there's additional criteria now. This is what we call supplemental factors, or multi-factor admission score with additional factors. Some of them, again, are very straightforward. Others may consider other situations or scenarios. For San Jose State, again, we don't have that process or that additional mechanism, right, for students to be able to communicate that. Looking at the list that's on the Cal State website, again, some of those supplemental factors, student attributes: first generation, low income, foster youth, military service. Some CSUs will consider activities and engagement outside of school, right? For San Jose State specifically, I can speak totally to that, my institution, is that we are, again, very straightforward with our GPA weighing the heaviest in the process. And the reason being is, for us specifically, is because of our competitive process and our impaction.
Thank you. Can somebody comment on the importance of unweighted versus weighted GPA when it comes to the holistic review?
I'd be happy to do that. Since we look at unweighted, every school is going to be different. Again, some schools will just look at the weighted GPA. Some schools will just look at what the high school transcript gives, and some high school transcripts give weighted and some give unweighted. In our case, we recalculate to an unweighted GPA on a 4.0 scale. The reason we do that is because we do get applications from all around the world, and the United States is the only country that weights grades. But what we'll do is, once we've gotten it back onto that 4.0 scale, we'll go back in and look at the rigor. So how many APs, IBs, honors, whatever advanced classes, whatever it is that your curriculum offers. But again, every school will be different. So it's important just to be aware of your school's policy, how much they do weight, but also keep in mind what your unweighted GPA is. So if a school's asking you, you're able to give them that and say, well, this is my unweighted GPA, but I've taken all of these AP classes or advanced classes. That's a question you have to ask every school, because we are all different.
I was just going to can I quickly add to, it could make a difference in terms of merit scholarships as well. So it's a good question to ask in terms of how it impacts your merit award at different institutions. For us, the weighted GPA is considered in merit, but we also recalculate and look at unweighted for admission. So it's just a good question to ask.
Thank you. Just for the UCs and CSUs again, could you go more in depth about the grading scale? Is it different from other colleges? And are the UCs required to hire a certain percent or to accept a certain percentage of in-state students?
So the University of California does have to follow California legislation and policy that says the UC campuses cannot exceed 18% of enrollment from outside of California. There are a few campuses that were above that, and they have to make progress every year to come down to that 18%. So yes, every California seat is filled with a California student.
And then grading scale.
Grading scales. So the UC application asks students to explain their grades and their scale. So if I'm on a IB program, I'm selecting International Baccalaureate, and I know that's a 1 through 7 scale. If I'm doing 0 to 100, that's all part of the drop down in the UC application. What we do is we have information from each California high school that then tells us what that sort of rubric happens to be. And so students are looked at in the context of their grading scale. I will point out that we do require grades. So there are some high schools in the Bay that have mastery transcripts, aka no grades. None of those students are eligible for regular admission. So those are all things that we consider in our holistic review in our process.
Yeah, for the Cal States, nothing too different. I'd say it's based on the traditional grade scale, and then again, similar. Our Cal State Apply application will have those options and those drop down options and menu.
Buka, there's a few more questions for you. Is it better to say undeclared or state a major and include the second box you also recommended?
If your first inclination is a selective major, it should be your first choice, or you're never going to get admitted to it. If you're not sure that that's your full major, then add undeclared as your second choice. That's my recommendation.
I think we're just going to answer about one or two more. Any advice for school visits from any of the panelists? What should a student be looking for? What should they be asking?
I'll answer that, because we do look at demonstrated interest, and that can include school visits. If you're interested in a campus, I definitely recommend that you visit it. It's really important to know if you feel comfortable on a campus and in the surrounding neighborhood. And so many campuses are so different. You may be on an actual college campus, or you may be in, living in a city somewhere, walking around city blocks from classroom to classroom. And it's really a personal choice sometimes about what you prefer. So it's really important that you kind of narrow down your choices of what kinds of campuses, what kind of universities you really feel comfortable in, and that'll help you narrow down your choice too. So I think it's a good idea anytime you're visiting anywhere, anytime you're traveling, is to visit some of the local campuses and just get a feel for them, so you start to understand where you feel most comfortable. And then obviously, you're going to choose a campus also based on what they offer academically, et cetera. But I think campus visits are really important. And for schools that look at demonstrated interest like us, it's important that if you do a campus visit, sign up for a tour, because if you come to our campus and don't sign up for a tour, we don't know you came to our campus. And so it's not counting as demonstrated interest. So if you sign up for a tour, we know that you came to campus. For other campuses, they might not follow demonstrated interest, and so maybe it's not as important. But it's always nice to be able to meet maybe somebody in the Office of Admissions in person, or meet with a faculty member, maybe do an interview if the school does interviews. Get a tour of the facilities. Maybe you're interested in biology. Maybe you want to take a look at the labs. All of those things, it's really important. Maybe you want to, if you can, not all schools will do this, we'll get a look at the residence halls, or, maybe be able to eat lunch in the dining hall. So it's important. You're going to be on a campus for 4 years. You want to be in a place where you feel comfortable, where your parents feel comfortable sending you. So that's my 2 cents.
I was just going to quickly add, try to visit when class is in session, so you can see what the student body is like, what the culture is like. A lot of families will want to visit over the summer, and that's fine. That's a good initial look at an institution, but try to attend when there is class in session. And I would recommend going to the events, because they will give you a bigger bang for your buck. You get to experience a lot more through a event versus just going on a campus tour.
School that doesn't do demonstrated interest, I'm going to ask that if you go on a campus tour, which I hope that you do, there's 2 things to do on a campus tour. Talk to students, talk to admissions, but don't make up questions just to talk to the admissions office. I get so many students who ask a question that's really, it's on the homepage. You knew that answer, but you're thinking it's a demonstrated interest. All it does is mean I have 200 emails in my unbox that I have to get to, as opposed to 12 that I should be getting at. So for the non-demonstrated interest schools, your campus tour is fabulous. Do it. Just don't add additional requests that aren't necessary.
That goes for those of us who look at demonstrated interest too, Kuka.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to respect everybody's time. And so if each one of you can just spit up with a word of wisdom, maybe a parting tip for a family, students. Again, thank you guys so much. Just a few seconds of some wisdom.
I could probably start. I'd say just overall, I think it can be an anxious time to explore, but it should be a very exciting time as well. And prepare, right? Plan. To piggyback off the tours, I think it's the best way to really get a feel for the campus and the community. One thing I was going to add was also, if you have the bandwidth and the time and the resources, yes, take a campus tour, engage, maximize your time, go to events and meet the students, but also explore the city, right? This again will be your home for the students, either 4 years, for 4 years or 2 years if you're transferring. But really get a feel for the community. For San Jose State, again, we're in a downtown urban area, and to be real, maybe that's not your vibe, right? That's not the environment you're looking for. If you're looking for a rural area, right? Try to spend some time and really, make that decision on if this is the place for you for 4 years or 2 years. So
I'll just say, take advantage of your college counseling team, because they are your experts on the ground. For any questions, if they don't know the answer to a question, they at least know who to reach out to at the various campuses to get the answer to that question. And they've been doing this for a long time. They understand, all the different university systems. And so really, really take advantage of just asking for their guidance, and, make sure you go to the meetings that they set up, and just do everything that they're telling you to do, because they're a huge font of information for you.
I was going to say, just like we do holistic admission, you do holistic consideration. So your major might be your top priority right now, and that's fine. There are many, many schools out there with the major that you're interested in, but it's really important to get to know yourself, especially over these next few years, to know what is going to help you be the best student. What kind of resources do you need? What kind of campus climate do you need? What kind of culture do you need? City, rural, all of that. And don't choose just based on that school has the best computer science program, so I'm just going to go there. It might not be the best computer science program for you. So you want to make sure, and then you won't be successful in that program if it's not a good fit. So really consider fit, what that means for you.
Building on that, and actually I would say complementing what you have to say about fit there, is I would also think about the type of student you want to be in college, and being the type of student who can fit at a lot of different institutions, right? If your definition of fit is I can only be successful at this one school, then that's not resilient, right? That's not the type of resilience that you're going to need to be successful in college, regardless of where you end up. You should think about being able to fit wherever you end up, and being successful and maximizing your opportunities and being open to new experiences, regardless of the institution that you end up at. And then your college experience is going to be amazing, no matter what campus you set foot on in the fall. Those ideas complement each other, I would say.
Don't do it alone, and don't rely on social media for your college admissions guidance. My best friend's uncle got into UCLA, so he's going to advise me it's not the route to go. You need to go to the admissions counselor source, because admissions changes every single year. What's true for the class of 24 may not be true for the class of 25, etc. So your source of truth is the admissions office. And we do workshops, we do webinars, we do all these things to help you navigate your application. So before you hit submit, are you confident that you're answering the question, or were you not sure what we were asking? Once you hit submit, that application's closed. It is done, honey. You are waiting until March before I talk to you, because you cannot edit. So do it early, ask for help, use your source of truth.
I love that closing. Again, thank you so much to all of our panelists. We are truly grateful for taking the time.
Yeah, I just have a couple announcements, but I do want to let our panelists go because I know it's late. I just have a couple announcements for events that are coming up for sophomore and junior families. So if you want to stick around for that, it won't take too long. But once again, thank you for the panelists and spending your evening with us. We really appreciate your knowledge and wisdom. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen again. So I know that was a lot of information, and hopefully you walked over or or you're taking away some tidbits of information that will help you through the process. And your college counselor, your assigned college counselor will also be happy to answer any questions. I know we didn't get to all of the Q&A, so feel free to reach out to your student's college counselor with those questions. But I wanted to highlight some events that are coming up for different grade levels for sophomores and juniors. So there's a couple events for sophomores that are coming up. One is next Wednesday. It's our standardized testing info evening. As you learned, standardized testing is evolving from year to year. So we've partnered with Compass, and they're going to hold a information session. And an email went out this afternoon about registering. So please sign up if you are interested. And then we have a college planning workshop. So this is a series that will go through a student's junior year, and we talk about different aspects of the college process. So the first one will take place April 22nd for sophomores. So please watch out for emails that are coming out. We'll let you know how that curriculum will be delivered. Then for juniors, there's many more events because this college process is getting more and more real as the months and weeks go by. So juniors should have scheduled an individual meeting with their college counselor already. So if your student has not done that, please encourage that to be taking place ASAP. Then the CAP form, part 1, all students should know about this. They got information from their college counselor on how to submit that to them. So there is a parent-guardian survey that can be completed on the parent-guardian survey, on the parent-guardian account. So if you need more time on that, that's totally okay. Just let your student know to indicate that on the CAP form, okay? And your signature is required. Then there's a very special event called Case Studies that is going to take place Sunday, April 14th. And this is with all SF independent high schools. So this is a day where this is only for junior families, so students and parents. You're going to be in individual classrooms with other students and other parents with 2 college reps. You're going to read through the same 3 applicants, and you're going to talk through, what do you guys see? What are highlights? What are some things that are conveyed in the application? And you're going to deny, waitlist, and accept, those 3 students. Then there's a huge college fair after. So this is a really great and insightful event. Then we have a final X period with your student on April 16th. Okay, and we know that cost is a very big and real part of this process. So we've partnered with Paul Martin, and he's offering lots of workshops for financial literacy. Okay, so these are some of the dates. A couple of them are for scholarships, and then the one in May is about building your list with affordability in mind. Okay, so we hope that these events will gear you up to really be prepared and equipped for the college process. Thank you again for sticking through almost 2 hours with us. We really appreciate it, and we hope to see you at these other events.